every year we kind of look forward to that. We look forward to who's going to make the return, who's going to make the comeback from injury or from a lost year, a down year. And the NFL actually has this. They give out a comeback player of the year award. And I'm thinking like the NBA, we should absolutely have that. We have so many cool stories of guys who have, had to rehab an injury, who have had to start over on a new team and like redefine their career. And that's some of the coolest stories we see every year. And it'd be cool to see that awarded. So I think this is a good time. Let's talk about a couple of guys that you think this season has that opportunity and maybe has the chance to qualify for an award like that. Who do you think could be comeback player of the year?
I mean, this is very interesting because it's such a fun award, and it's surprising the NBA haven't introduced it because it's almost it's also another award they can give to players.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
years where we're like, oh,
yeah.
this guy should be this or this guy should be that. They have another award there that could go to
Yeah,
these
and voters love it's
these
all
guys.
about the story. I mean, the
Yeah.
MVP is never it is about that, and that's why Jokic wins every year because it's like he's just the best player hands down. But we love a story, like fans love a story, and that's the biggest reason why people vote. So I'm sure we'll be able to come up with people that we disagree on.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I looked at it and I was like, I saw like four. I picked out four guys in like different situations where there could be
Mhm,
like a certain story around why they'd be a comeback player, that sort of
mhm.
way. So the first guy I thought of was Ja Morant. You can think about
Okay,
him as a guy that was injured last year.
yeah,
Obviously had the off court issues as well. And then you think if he came back this year, he played 65 plus games, maybe even I'll say 70 games because he's actually never played 70 games in his career. Leads the Grizzlies to being a top 4 seed again. He's back on top. He'd be a perfect candidate and a great story relatively because now some people still kind of think the off court stuff. Maybe don't want to get too high on a guy like Ja Morant, but in terms of the being injured last year and the fact that he can bounce back and be a top level guard in this league, and the team are good enough to make a bounce back to being like a top seed, a playoff team straight away, that would definitely have him in that conversation.
yeah. So the reason I'm smiling about it because remember when John wins the Most Improved award,
Mhm.
and it was like should we really give it like there are other guys that we want to give this award to because like Ja's already like an all NBA player. He's supposed to do this. Like we expect this of him. But he got so much better on top of how good he was. It's like, all right, like what is this award if we don't give it to him? And I feel like this would almost be the same exact thing if we had this award and we gave it to Ja because I think we expect it. That's one thing that I think about like a comeback is it's something that is unexpected. It's something that like you don't necessarily see happening. Like the odds are against you. That injury, no one expects you to come back from that. That team situation, no one expects you to be better, but you go above and beyond and you make it work. I mean, the things with Jaws, like, dude, he's gonna make it work. We all know the player is. He had a shoulder injury, and those take time to really get back from, and it's not a quick fix. But guys recover from that. And in terms of like the off court stuff, we can't speculate, but it seems like things have changed in a meaningful way. He's gonna come back, bro. Like he's going to be a 25, 8 assist type of player. He's going to lead the Grizzlies to at least the top 6 seed. He's going to be. This is all dependent on maybe like the Zach Edey stuff we talked about, like their center rotation and how they look defensively, how deep they can be. But Ja Morant as the player, people have forgotten, but they'll remember very quickly. It's going to take the first couple weeks to be like, oh, okay, that's Ja Morant. I forgot. Sorry. Like, dude, he's going to be exactly the same player he was before. Nothing's changed. He's going to be undoubtedly Ja Morant. There's nothing going to be holding him back from that.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fair. But you got to keep in mind as well. Think of it like in this situation. Tom Brady once won the NFL Comeback Player of the Year, so that's to kind of keep it relative. Those guys
Yeah,
can
that's
work their
true. That's
way
true.
into the conversations.
When did he win it after he tore his ACL?
I'm not sure. I didn't actually look what year it was that he won.
Maybe I'm trying to think. Maybe that was a year. I'll have to fact check that. But I have one that's going to be annoying, and I part of me doesn't want to see it, and the other part of me is like, that would be pretty awesome. But first, let me admit something to you. I had texted you. I think it was last week. I texted you. I was like, Ben Simmons to the Warriors, and I just completely listened on. And let me defend myself. Let me defend myself. It was the same day that Woj announced his retirement, and then this fake account, and I didn't know not know it was fake. Aaron Rosenberg posts breaking news, and it looked so legit too. And I've never seen this account, so it wasn't like NBA Sentinel or anything like that. And it just looked legit, like Ben Simmons to the Warriors. And I was in the middle of moving. I was busy. I didn't have time to like double check, but I just let that just enter my brain and just become fact. So for the past week, I'm like, all right, like I'm gonna prep for thinking about how Ben Simmons is gonna fit in with the Warriors. Let's take a look. And then as I'm doing my prep, I'm like, wait, that was fake. I didn't get got for like an hour or like half an hour or even a day. I got for a week. I had that like just simmering in my brain, like just picturing Ben Simmons and Steph Curry, just picturing him and Draymond Green, like with that defensively. Oh my God, just and that's not real. So all that
Picturing all
said,
that and just refusing to acknowledge the fact that he won't be on the court or anything like that. Yeah, yeah.
okay, so back to the real reality, right? This is the last time. Last year was the last time. This is the last time that we're gonna talk about Ben Simmons and what he could be. And I'm gonna nominate him for a comeback player of the year for the same reasons every other year, because they still hold true. And I'm gonna say it like this: like, who is Ben Simmons if he decides to be himself? He's a defensive player of the year candidate. He's a bona fide first all NBA defense. He's going to be a guy that is a elite point guard in terms of creating threes. He's been one of the top 3-point creators whenever he's healthy in the league. The same rates of Giannis and Luka, like that's what he does. One of the best fast break orchestrators in the league. And he's going to have a team around him that honestly, it makes sense. You know, he doesn't have a post player in Embiid who needs to hold up space in there. Like, he's got a rim running five that kind of works with him. He's got wings everywhere who can shoot around him. And dude, for a guy like him who doesn't want to shoot, he's got Cam Thomas next to him. Cam Thomas not gonna have a problem shooting. He's gonna be real happy when Ben Simmons just dumps the ball off to him. I mean, like, in terms of like actual like situation, it makes sense for a guy who hasn't literally played any meaningful basketball in what, the last 3 years. If you were to come back, like, take things seriously, because this is probably this is not probably, this is definitely his last chance. If he does a fat zero, he's gonna have no contract. No one's gonna be coming looking for him. But if he comes out and he is even like 85% of what he was, 80% of what he was, that's a guy a lot of teams are gonna look at and want to reconsider their opinion of him, because he's that good. And that would be the comeback that everyone's been waiting for the last 3 years. But it's now or never. It's the last time.
Yeah, yeah, I can't get on board with it.
I know you
That
can.
that
It's
Ben
fair.
Simmons is just not here anymore. That guy does not exist anymore. Since that moment against Atlanta when he was afraid to shoot the ball, that broke him. Like, his last three playoff games, 8 points, 6 points, 5 points. Since then, since those three playoff games, did not play the following season. During that time, he was traded to the Nets. 22-23, 42 games, 33 starts, 6.9 points, 6.3 boards, 6.1 assists. 23-24, just 15 games, 12 starts. Pretty much the same stats across the board. You just don't go from where he was to not playing for 3 years and then just getting back to any sort of level close to that. It just doesn't happen. He's kind of gone to that, like, kind of the John Wall sort of area. He was that guy, then the injuries came, and he's just not going to get back to it, because like, getting back to it is getting back to being like an all defensive first team, because he did that twice, being a high assist guy, being like a double digit point scorer. And I just don't see him ever getting close to that again. Like, I agree with you. If he does do that, like if he comes in next year and he averages like, even if he plays like 65 games and he's like 10 point, or like say like 12 points, like 8 boards, like 9 assists or something like that, and he's at similar sort of level to defender, then I'd say he's in the conversation. But I don't even see him getting close to that level again.
Like, and that is the point. I think we look for the unlikely. We look for the the guy that we don't expect to do it, but then we look at the upside. And I think out of anyone who has the unlikely story, I mean, this is not a likely situation. Like, 90% chance. I would never bet on Ben Simmons to do this, by the way. I would never bet any sum of money to do this. because of his track record, because he's shown, that he's not really interested right now in coming back. But I mean, if he is, and he locks in and he is healthy, I mean, he said it last year. This is literally the same thing that we talked about last year. Literally the same thing. But I think it still is to be said that we're not asking him to level up like we did before. It's not like, okay, well, Ben, like, shoot the ball. No, we don't need you to shoot the ball. Just be who you were. Be who you were. Because that level of player is still valuable. That's still an elite level player. That's still a guy who's going to defend 1 through 4, 1 through 5. It's going to be a guy that can still run an offense for you. It's going to be a guy that's going to be backbreaking for the opposing team if you're able to get it out and run. It's going to be a guy that's going to be able to rebound. It's going to be a guy that is going to create a ton of threes for you. Like that kind of player can find a niche in this league. And for a guy who we think is very much on his way out of the league, and we're not even convinced cares if he's on his way out, that would be the biggest comeback.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's probably fair. My next guy, I'm gonna skip over one just because I think you won't fight it. It'll be kind of similar to like a Jam Morant sort of situation. So I'll go. My next guy will be Klay Thompson,
Yes.
a
Yes.
guy who effectively after last year, people are kind of pretty high thinking the guy's past it, but now he's going to a new team. He's finally out. He's out of Golden State. The guy who's played his whole career in Golden State. He's moved over to Dallas, another team that are looking to get back to the NBA Finals where they went last year. And you look at him, and I would say you just look. He can get back to being like a 4 3-pointers made per game on 40% efficiency, making, especially this is probably also important, making the big shots at the right time and just being a starter level player. The story around all that will absolutely have him hyped, and he'd be at that sort of level where you'd be looking at him like, oh, this guy's made a serious comeback, new team, and we have the resurgence of Klay Thompson. That would definitely be a story I think a lot of people could get behind.
Yeah, I think the narrative is gonna be so much different too. Like, people kind of have this new expectation of him, like, oh, he's kind of past his prime, which he is. But I think people are not going to expect him to be a massive contributor. They're not going to expect him to save the Mavs the same way they expected him to save the Warriors, because the Warriors, totally different situation. They are on the cusp of the end of their time, and losing Clay was kind of jettisoning them off that edge. And with the Mavs too, like, any contribution he has, I think if he literally does what he did last year, minus some like very obviously bad things, like he's made some very obviously boneheaded plays and boneheaded shots last year that led a lot of those low lights that people love to post. But then when you look at the course of like the whole year, like what his actual efficiency was, were they at the right times? Maybe not. If you look at shooting in the fourth, like, not great. But if you look at it as a whole, like, he was still a what the NBA would consider a good shooter. So if he just does that on the Mavs for a team that really, really would love to have a guy who can consistently do that, like, he's already going to be lauded as like a hero there for what he's going to bring from the shooting perspective. And it's not going to take a lot, I think, to get him much better looks than he would get with the Warriors, because Luka's going to create that. Kyrie's going to create that. The kind of spacing that they bring, and the kind of, the gravity that they have in the pick and roll, especially with their two bigs. Like, there's going to be a very different situation for Clay where he's going to get a lot more open shots, or his gravity is going to create even better offense for the Mavs. That's going to be very well documented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
I
he's good fit for that. The old comeback board there.
I'm curious for your next one, because if you're telling me I'm not going to argue it, I wonder if it's mine. Ready?
No,
3, 2, 1. Lonzo.
no, I don't know what are you
No,
talking about. No, no, no.
this is
No,
gonna be the greatest.
the guy I skipped was because I said he was kind of like Jam Morant, so I think you'd fight against it. So I was like, I'll just skip over that one. I
Oh,
got I got I got a final guy. Don't worry. It was Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy, nah, nah.
Yeah, that's
I
cool.
Because this is, like I said, this is all about like the optics. Like, what's his face from the Bills who won the comeback player of the year? He was not good. The guy who like died in the field. What's his name again?
Hamlin.
Yeah, like he was not a good cornerback, but he got comeback player of the year because he played and wasn't dead, which is great. But he wasn't good
It's a big achievement, to
on
be
the field.
fair.
No, it's a massive achievement, but on the field, like, he was not a good player. So it's
Okay.
all about story, and like Jimmy Butler is like, I think this. It feels like the vibe has changed around him in that people are just getting tired of it.
He probably hasn't had enough of a drop off either as well to qualify, I would say as well.
Yeah, and people are just tired of it. They're tired of him not being able to play through some nagging injuries, which is it's not his fault. Like the kind of basketball he plays, it's a bruising basketball. It's taking a toll on his body, and he's a guy that tries to like level up through the season, just like hold off until the playoffs, and then use his energy there. And you can tell, but I mean, even Pat Riley was like, dude, just don't talk, just play.
Well,
Like
speaking of guys who have issues with their body, let's get to Lonzo.
let's get to Lonzo because I think this would be if Ben Simmons won it, I'd be like, okay, great. Glad, happy for you. You finally put it together, even though we've been waiting for so long. But like Lonzo Ball's injury and his injury history is, very similar to Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose is a folklore hero, so it's a little bit different emotionally. But Lonzo Ball, what he's been through on the court and what he's had to do to try to get back is just as heartbreaking. It's awful. Like for him to have had the meniscus injury very early on, Lakers already had to have a surgery for that, and then has another meniscus injury. Okay, so now he needs to have a surgery for it. And then the Bulls are finally getting on a roll. They're finally when Lonzo and Caruso were on that floor, they were a menace. They're the best defense in basketball. Opposing backcourts could not score on them. And the kind of chaos he created and the fun, like fast paced level of basketball, that's not something that we've really seen in a while. Like that your backcourt creating so many defensive opportunities and fast break opportunities and the way that they both pass the ball and like how that just like charge not only the Bulls and their roster and all their players, but charge the city. Like that was a kind of identity. Lonzo brought an identity to that basketball team in the same way that Caruso did, but with his like flashy passing, with the 3-point shooting, like there was a new era that was coming with Lonzo. Like he wasn't necessarily the face of it. Levine was going to be the face of it, right? But Lonzo was going to be that obvious, like connecting piece. Which he was, and for him to then have another knee injury and to have this rare kind of like a procedure done after another procedure. He had 2 years straight of knee surgeries, and that last one he had last year was a transplant called an allograft. It's a transplant that some data is coming out showing now that it has improvements, but it's not done. It's very rare. It's a very rare procedure. There's not a lot of examples to draw on. So for him to like go from trying to run, he can't run, months and months of trying to get back to run. So then he has to have this transplant surgery that's not really sure it's going to work. And then you have reports it's still painful to walk, can't really run, painful to shoot. And all of a sudden this summer, like he's shooting. Oh, wait, he's playing 3-on-3. Oh, he's playing 5-on-5. Oh, he's getting like runs. Oh, he's going to play this year. Just this build up to right now is so unexpected. I think most people assume that you're going to be happy if Lonzo could live the rest of his life without just chronic pain and not being able to really like, run around and walk and just like enjoy life. And then now he's like on the cusp of playing basketball again. If Lonzo Ball just steps on an NBA court and can play basketball and be an NBA player, that's a Hamlin level where he didn't almost die. Let me reel back in. I'm like really getting into this story now, but truly for him to have gone from I'm not sure if I can walk without pain to I'm playing NBA basketball again, playing the game I love and playing for the team that I, supercharge. Like that is the comeback that I think would really captivate the hearts of NBA fans who love Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball is one of the most fun basketball players to watch. The way he plays team basketball the right way, the way he plays defense, just everything about how he plays on the court. You'd love to see a player like that. And for him to come back, that would be the story that people should vote for next year if it happens.
Yeah, I mean that's sure. When's Bulls media day?
It's got to be coming up soon.
Could be,
I can look at it.
might be today. I guess we'll find out. Hopefully we'll get news on whether Lonzo's gonna whether they have a timeline yet about when he might be able to return. But yeah, that's obviously definitely a very intriguing one. Be huge for the Bulls. it's always so tough when you just don't know what level they're going to be able to come back to. But if he can come back and just be like a starter level player, that kind of that will definitely be a narrative that people will look at, and definitely be a situation where people are looking and seeing like how impressive it is that he's able to make this return. It's just kind of that level of people might judge too harshly what level he actually comes back at after all the time out. That might be the only reason where you wouldn't fully back into that whole the whole narrative, I would say.
Yeah, I think that Bulls Nation and the NBA fans in general are ready to just accept whatever form he comes back with. Like I think
The
that
Bulls definitely are,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And just a quick aside. I don't know. Well, before we go into side, because Lonzo Ball coming back brings me under some interesting questions about like what the Bulls are going to do with their brand new looking backcourt. But first, who is your last guy? Who else should we be
James
thinking
Harden, the guy we already talked about.
about? Oh, James Harden, Jimmy Butler. Okay.
I look at James Harden as like a version of like a backup QB who got the chance to be a starter QB again, and like balled out. That's how I'm looking at James Harden this year. We already talked about the chance he's going to get to see if he still has it. He's still that scorer. If James Harden's like a 25 point per game scorer, and somehow the Clippers are able to sustain a top six, they can finish sixth place in the West. Like that will be he'll be in that sort of conversation. I know it's not the same because he wasn't injured, he hasn't really had any time out, but this is a guy who's effectively been like almost like he's been on the sidelines to coming back and being the guy that we know he once was, and that's definitely a story I think people could get behind.
What quarterback are you thinking of? Not like I'm thinking. What quarterback are you thinking of? By the
Geno
way, that's
Smith, when he won it, he was a bench guy. Then he got sprung back into he got the shot in Seattle and one comeback player of the year.
Hmm. Okay, I like that. I mean, Geno Smith was never an MVP though,
Yeah, I know that's fair. It's obviously not exactly that
an
like that
MVP
way, but
level player.
that's kind of the way I'm looking at it in fair, like in terms of like James Harden. Like we haven't seen the James Harden that I think we're gonna get the opportunity to see this year in what 4 years. So
Yeah,
like people kind of like almost forgotten. People think he's going into that twilight of his career, and he has the opportunity to have that bounce back. That's the way I'm looking at it.
yeah. We've talked about that. I think in the last part of the pod before, but
Mhm.
I am still curious about. But you haven't had an MVP level player have an argument to repeat that level of performance the way that James Harden might be able to.
Yeah, especially
And
with Kawhi now. With he's that was announced about his that surgery he had. I don't know. They didn't actually give a timeline on when he might be good to go either. So he might definitely might be even more thrust into that role if there's no Kawhi for a good
yeah,
while.
the level he would need to ascend to for the Clippers to do anything significant this year is astronomical. And I think just in that same light of talking about Ben Simmons all of a sudden going back to his all NBA, all, defense kind of level player, then we can say whoever has the most opportunity to like return to a major level of play, like Harden. Harden would be the one. And I think it would be like an award of apology in a way, as opposed
Yeah.
to an award for the comeback. He'd be we're sorry player of the year. You're not
But hey,
washed.
we got to keep tabs on this for the season. At the end of the year, we'll give our an award for the comeback player of the year. We'll
Yes,
do
let's do
that.
that. If the NBA will do it, we will do it.